in which killing took place can prosecute Babangida on a theory of command responsibility because he headed a regime with a unified command as commander-in-chief. So a theory of command, if you use a theory of command responsibility, Babangida can be brought to account for any of those incidents. And by the way, there is no limitation on criminal responsibility for any of those things. It's just a question of, is anybody willing to do it? You don't have to succeed in taking him to jail. But you know what? We do owe it to our younger people to say, this nonsense has got to stop. We did not escort any of these specimens to Nigeria. I'm sorry.
All right. Thank you very much, Prof. I'm happy we are discussing this June 12 election, then the book that Babangida launched, and people contributed a lot of money. He made a lot of money, whether the money is the reason he did it or not. But for me, as you said, I don't see, there's absolutely nothing in that book. People were jubilating. There is nothing new that he said. There is absolutely nothing that Professor Humphrey Wolsu did not say regarding June 12 that myself, I believe other persons on this platform knew about it. So why people were jubilating about it, I don't understand the reason behind it. I think one of the biggest problem we have is that a lot of people don't read, and I think that's the problem. And to crown it all, people were, the former presidents were there. Even those that, apart from Buhari, those that felt that they did everything in June 12 to stop him were there, thanking him, praising him, which shouldn't be so, right? But to continue the conversation, let me quickly pass the mic to those who have questions regarding Babangida and June 12 and the book. Please, anybody that have a question regarding that, please do raise your hand and I'll pass the mic to you. Those on the speaker section and those on the listener section who will still want to be part of it, please do request for the mic and I will gladly bring you up. Those on the speak. Okay, Omar, please go ahead, sir.
Prof.
Yeah.
Let me say that I align with you entirely that on the issue of June 12th, there were plethora of lies that were succeeded by more lies. And so many issues give you that confidence that they are all lies. Now, I would not say that Abacha was not part and parcel of those who said they should annul the election. But I will say that Babangida actually wanted to annul the election because the incidents that happened prior to the election will confirm to you that he didn't want the election to take place. First, Adamu Churuma emerged from the NRC while Sheikh Musa Yaradua emerged from the SDP. And despite their emergence, he not only he banned them. He not only cancelled the primaries, he banned them, and then said some other fresh people should come out. He was the one who single-handedly brought Tofa to come out. Nobody knew Tofa in the Nigerian political landscape. Tofa was highly unknown. He was thinking that Tofa was going to win. And so when Tofa lost, again, that spirit of cancellation that affected the first set of our best politicians also affected Abiola and Tofa. This time, it came too late, a little too late, after the election. Now, you can see the trajectory. The trajectory is that after the annulment, he brought in a weaker person, Shonekan, and then in the interim national government decree, he made Abacha deputy, knowing fully well that Abacha will not last long with Shonekan being his commander-in-chief. He will take him away. So I think it was a deliberate plan. My anger with the whole thing is that at this point in time, where Nigerians were already know the truth, we already know. We may not be investigators, but the truth has, most of the actors have spoken in one fora or the other, and we know the truth. It is now that you are coming out to say this is the truth, and even bringing up the results as if he is a Humphrey Nwosu, putting it in his book, and then commending Buhari for giving Abiola GCFR. Now, my point is, I'm not after Babangida. How can Abiola benefit from this Babangida's, mystical errors or stupidity, if I will put it this way? Can Abiola benefit? Can he be listed as the former president, even though he was not sworn in? Or how best can he benefit? This is my question. Thank you.
I cannot see how Abiola can benefit, unfortunately, because you've said it, he wasn't sworn in. Tragically, it was, unless, of course, there is an explicit legal amendment in order to provide for his unique situation, and then address that retrospectively. That's the only way I could possibly see Abiola benefit, to the extent that there is a benefit, because tragically he's late and has been late for quite a while, and therefore it's difficult to actually speak in terms of benefit for him. Maybe for his successors in title, as in his children and wives, but the whole Babangida thing, I don't know, has anybody here actually read Tony Aneni's autobiography? Because if you have, just Omar, to buttress your point that actually there was a plan. Tony Aneni's autobiography, which was issued in the year, I believe, that he died, or within 1 year of his death, the title was, I believe, My Life in Nigerian Politics, right? It was issued in 2016. And Tony Aneni was an important player in this situation because he was the chair of the SDP, which was one of the two parastatal parties created by Babangida. And Chief Aneni said that Babangida sent him in the course of that, because they wanted the party chairman on side, or the parties on side. So Babangida sent him to Ali Gusso, who was National Security Advisor, to get briefed on the material they had. And so General Gusso briefed him. And what was the briefing? Babangida's intel in recruiting Tofa was that Tofa was going to win. And they were comfortable with Tofa being declared winner because Tofa had registered with the identity documents, with the party card. In registering for the NRC, his party card was actually that of a woman. So the plan of the military was that when Tofa was declared, they would say he was an impostor and they would cancel the elections. This is in black and white in Tony Aneni's book. But as you said, Nigerians don't read. Was it? No, it was Mindset who said it. Nigerians don't read. Tony Aneni told the full story of the briefing he received from the military high command. And for Babangida and for the remainder of this story, you go to Omo Morui's June 12 story. Between them, the full story is told. All of Babangida's criminal revisionism is precisely that, criminal revisionism, and is intolerable and should not be tolerated. And as I said, starting from the claims of authorship, Babangida did not write the book. The book was written by Dr. Yemi Ogumbi and Dr. Chidi Odinkalu. Now, if this book had been written by if Babangida did not put his name to claim authorship, If it had been written by Yemi Ogumbi and Chidi Abuta, I would not be as irate because it would be intellectual speculation without the benefit of historical records. And for me, that's okay. All I will do is disagree with them, but I will not take it personally. Now, Babangida, on the other hand, is purporting to create a presidential library, which will include records from his term, notwithstanding that he's a military lead ruler and should not have anything like that. And to think that a man who was meticulous with records as he is can write this book with no record of minutes, no contemporaneous records, no contemporaneous corroboration, and to want people to swallow it is just an act of idiocy. Hello?
Okay. Yeah, Prof, we're waiting for you to land so we can bring others who are raising their hand.
I've landed.
Okay. Let me quickly pass the mic to Mo. Mo, you have the mic, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Mindset. As you specified that Nigerians don't read, so when I was watching the IBB launch, I was just laughing in my room. Let me give you some books that Nigerians, maybe the listeners, can go and research on. Once you research on, you can be able to draw your own analogy over the matter. The first one is We Are All Biafrans by Chidi Onuma. The second one is My Command by General Obasanjo. The third one is Because I Am Involved by Odumegu Ojukwu. The fourth one is Why We Struck by Adewale Ademoyega. The fifth one is Revolution in Nigeria by Major General Joe Garba. The sixth one is Last 100 Days of Abacha by Olusegun Adeniyi. The seventh one is Profile in Courage by Paul C. Tarfa. The eighth one, it is 2007, the IBB option. These are books that I feel you can read and come to an analogy. Even though I was not there when these things happen, I can confidently tell you from my own analogy what it is. There is no time. IBB is one of the smartest military men ever to be produced in Nigeria. You cannot tell me that someone who survived 2 coups will say openly that he didn't know or he accidentally allowed June 12 to happen. But as far as I'm concerned, if you read those books, you will be able to get your own analogy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mo. Prof, do you want to respond to what Mo said? Or
No, not at all. I mean, it's very clear.
Okay, thank you. Roy, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Prof, this question is to you. I heard someone ask the question, what benefit would this revisionism by Babangida bring to Abiola? But for me, I want to ask what benefit or what Nigerians can expect, what options there are for Nigerians to get something from this, because this is a rape of their citizenry. I find it difficult. Although, of course, we call Nigeria our country, but what makes it a nation? What makes us call it a country? If elections are not representative of the will of the people, if military rulers who actually have committed treason can come out now with all the wealth that we know was not their emoluments or compensation, it's not appropriate, or we can tell it's ill-gotten, if I may say so, but you know what I mean. Now, what can Nigerians do at this point, using Babangida one as an example, using another living head of state, past head of state, Buhari as another? What can we do from a legal standpoint to say, no, we have a country, we should have power? What are the legal actions that we can follow and, put these guys somewhere where they should be right now? Thank you.
No, this seems to me is not what the legal options are, because the legal options are clear, and I think I've tried to allude to them. There are no limits. You don't have limitation on crime of the sort that we're talking about. That's one. And secondly, you don't have these are not federal crimes. So you cannot say Tinubu has issued directives, do this or you die. It's down to, and if anyone remembers, when Al-Mustafa was charged, it was Lagos state government that charged him because the crimes took place in Lagos. You know, so different people, are subject to different jurisdictions. So different incidents are subject to different jurisdictions. And in the format of Nigeria's federalism, pretty much all of the crimes we are talking about connected with what Babangida did were state crimes, and not federal crimes. So if anybody wants to undertake action on those, they are welcome to do so. The problem is, to the extent that Babangida acted in sovereign capacity, then liability is that of state and not that of the person, except to the extent that given Justice Dolapo Akinsoya's judgment as to the sequencing of his last-minute decrees, there were things that he did after he had lost the authority, the legal authority, after he had actually legislated himself out of existence as president. For those, then, of course, personal responsibility can attach. But it seems to me that for those things that were outside the bounds of sovereign authority, there is personal responsibility. And I do think that we should explore all of that. Of course, for the civil proceedings, that's a different thing, because then you'll be looking at limitations and but then there is a doctrine of continuing violations. And it is well possible that with reference to a lot of the things we are dealing with, because there have been no remedies, we are probably dealing with continuing violations. And the question will be the moment at which the trigger act in the continuum occurred. But you know, all of this will be fact specific. But I don't think we should all just rest. Because if my own personal belief, again, I could be out to lunch, I could be wrong, is that if Babangida had not done what he did, the country may well have been on a totally different trajectory and would not have ended up in the mess in which we are now, and would have cleaned up our acts long time ago. The cost of entry into political life may well have been sorted out in a way that would not have criminalized our politics, would have made it possible for more decent people to go into public service and political leadership, and we may have ended up in a totally different place. So it's not just my generation that ended up being sorted out by this terribly, but it's also the generations after mine. And I do think all of us owe ourselves the responsibility to stand up and stop just being tossers.
Thank you very much, Prof. Do we still have any other person that has a question? Olatunde, Dr. Udo, do you have any questions? If not, I would then go to the next topic. Dr. Udo, do you have a question in regarding to the Babangida book launch and the June 12th election?
Mindset. I don't have any question except maybe if I could ask Prof just one question that just occurred to me. Prof, please, do you think that the former head of state, right? Do you think that he stood to benefit anything by releasing this book and admitting to some of these things he admitted now? I mean, what would he stand to benefit after 32 years, right? That is what I would love to ask, because he has been gone from the public scene for a while now.
Babangida, first of all, Babangida did not admit to anything. If there is anything he tried to do, the entire book can be summed up in 3 words: it wasn't me. So he didn't admit to anything, and I can't understand for the life of me where people got the idea that he admitted to anything. What people are talking about, he released the figures. We already knew the figures. So, and he was not the person who organized the elections. How could he have released figures? Anyway, the person who organized the elections long ago released the figures. He admitted to apologize. He did not apologize. He admitted to this. No, he didn't do any of that. An accident happened on his watch, according to him, and he was a victim of it. And he was a victim of that accident, which was procured by a dead man called Abacha, with the assistance of a dead woman called Justice Ikpeme, with the assistance of all manner of dead people. That's his story. Okay, what does he stand to benefit? Two things. He's at death's door. He's not the fittest physical specimen at the moment, and in Nigeria, in any case, I'm not being unkind. They ever have contact with. And globally, Japan has got one of probably the highest life expectancy in the world at around 80. Babangida has beaten the best average life expectancy in the world at the moment. So to say that a person at 83, 84 is at death's door is not being unkind, it's just being factual. Now, given that, it seems to me that the first thing is that it is in Babangida's interest to try to affect how people will remember or memorialize him. So this is about legacy. This is about memory. This is about trying to frame himself in the aftermath of his earthly existence. The second thing I suspect is, to the extent, the idea that people come to a book launch and they are writing these phantasmagoric checks, 8 million, billion, 5 billion. I mean, people who are giving 500 million look like, impoverished people at that gathering. And all of that is supposedly going to a presidential library on the back of a book written without one mention of any presidential record. It's astonishing. So there are benefits, of course. There are fantastic benefits that he's accruing as a result of that. But the most important of those is an intangible benefit to frame the memory of young Nigerians who don't have much to go on, because most of them get their information from Twitter. The last person who did that was Muhammadu Buhari. See where it got us.
All right. Thank you very much, Prof, for responding to the question that Dr. Udo asked. Do we still have any other person? Okay, Olatunde, please go ahead.
Prof, you know what? Talking about, you were talking about the Delegiwa murder and everything. I'm not sure if Colonel Togo and Akilu, if they're still alive. Now, those are two people that
they're both alive.
Good. Now, those are two people that whether it's a state or whatever, those are two people that can be put to the stand or taken to the stand or have a case against them. Maybe in their old age, they might recant some of their old lip-tight allegiances that they held back then, because they can provide a direct link between that murder and the way it goes all the way to the top. Because just like what you were saying, a lot of us who were younger at the time of this thing happened, or we had front row seats of when it happened, we know about the phone call before that was taken by Delegiwa's wife. And we also know the relationship between Delegiwa, Newswatch, and IBB. So it's not just IBB alone that could be, taken to task on this right now. Those two are, and like you said, as long as they're still alive, there's nothing stopping arms of Nigerian government, or to say, look, we need to reopen these things. Or Nigerians raising putting it to the government and say, we need to reopen this case. There shouldn't be a statutory limitation on a case like that.
Colonel Togo is alive. General Akilu is alive in Kano. The question is, who bothers? That's really the issue. There are parts of Nigerian history I probably don't want to go into on this particular occasion. But because the country has been built on so much blood and spilling of blood, going back to the onset of independence, and if you go back to the massacres, pre-colonial massacres, going back to the post-Berlin period, it's difficult to people have become habituated to blood. But I keep saying this because a lot of people don't understand the implications of this. And for me, a civilian trying to teach soldiers and securocrats this kind of thing is frustrating. But you see, today we complain of um, of a country full of IEDs, improvised explosive devices. The first improvised explosive device in Nigeria, certainly in the post-war period, was Delegiwa's murder. It was the bomb that killed Delegiwa, right? After that, people discovered facility in IEDs. And so, as the Babangida regime wound down, a lot of IEDs were going off around Nigeria. Bombs were going off everywhere from 1991, 92, 93. During the Abacha regime, bombs were going off everywhere. That technology, that bomb-making capability that was deployed in Delegua's murder appears to have gone proletarian. How did that happen? It goes back to what happened then through the strike force into the years of the Abacha regime. And if we don't understand the link, that there is a straight line that runs of the strike force. If you go back to the decommissionings in the armed services done in the Obasanjo administration, a lot of the people in the strike force allegedly, reportedly, were at the core of what ultimately became Boko Haram in the Northeast in 2003, 2000 to 2003. There is a straight line that goes through this whole damn thing, all right? And the fact that the people who were responsible in uniform services at the highest levels are unwilling to help the country unwind and unravel this thing is where I just part ways with them. The whole thing compromised Nigeria's existence at a very fundamental level. But unfortunately, I'm a civilian and I'm explaining this for the benefit of uniformed people in the uniformed services. That's annoying and frustrating.
Thank you very much, Prof. Because of time, okay, we've got to start my verse here. What please, you have the mic. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. Your question for Prof, please.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Yes. Prof, good evening. My question straight up. I'm a millennial, so that
Sorry,
I
I'm not
was a
sure if it's
very
from my end, but I can hardly.
Can you hear me? Sorry. Oh Jesus.
I hear you. I hear you.
Okay. Good evening, Prof. Yes.
Yeah,
So
I
I
think
was
he's
saying,
speaking, but I can't hear a single word. So I'm to make sure it's not from my end.
it's your
Another person
end, your mindset, though. It's your end. Prof is hearing me. Ah, God.
No, I hear you. I hear you pretty
I
well.
can hear you clearly. I think the problem is with mindset.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. Let me go quickly. Yeah, so like I'm saying, I'm a millennial, so the Babangida time I was like, a kid. I didn't know what was happening like that. Now, I want to understand how did Nigeria, because when we talk about like, when you're engaging like a democratic system, the intellectuals in like, institutions are very, very important. So how did Nigeria go from Ali must go kind of energy in our tertiary institutions to the point that at which we are right now, that it has been sort of, we don't see that critical mass of people that are on that wavelength in these days and time. Like, what really happened? I'm asking because there's a rumor that cultism was introduced and like it watered down a whole lot of like those energies and all that. That's my question. Thank you.
I mean, that's an important question, and in fact, that's part of the explanation. You posed the question, and you provided at least a substantial part of the answer. I mean, Stephen Ellis wrote about this they actually traced the history of the introduction of cultism in his final book. And he wrote, it's a classic. You should try and which is on the origins of organized crime in Nigeria generally. But cultism is a major part of the explanation and the infiltration of universities by the state using cults and the state security apparatus in tandem with one another, not either or. The second thing is the criminalization of lawful protests, including litigation. By the time that Babangida left power, or indeed by 1991-92, Babangida had decreed that going to court against his regime was a crime. And if you sued the Babangida regime, you were liable to go to jail. All right? And so protests became something unheard of. If you go back, I litigated on behalf of the leadership of the NANs when they were abducted by the Babangida regime in 1991. Abdul Mahmoud was the president of NANS when they went to a meeting in Ibadan, and the entire leadership of their president was compromised by the cult SSS leadership in the university on the campus in Ibadan. And as a result, SSS swooped, abducted all of them, disappeared them in Kirikiri prisons. Everybody was looking for them, nobody found them. I had gone on a visit to see some other clients, pretrial detainees in Kirikiri prison, when the OC prisons called me aside and whispered to me that there were these high-value political detainees there under decree number 2, and they didn't know how to get the word out. So I went to see them. That was how I discovered Abdul Mahmoud, Bamidele Aturu, Funsho Mogbeyin, Nasser Kura, the lot of them, and they became my clients. That's a story for another day, okay? But, and a lot of that leadership, Chimo Kereke, a lot of them, a lot of that leadership, they were going to destroy. I know what it took us, not just to graduate them, but to get people like Abdul Mahmoud and Chima to go to the bar. Because at that point, they wanted to destroy their careers. They wanted to make sure that they did not become anything in life. And we had to go to GCM1 UK Senior Advocate of Nigerian Life Bench at the point, got him on site, and he was the person who took the case of these young men from door to door and made sure that nobody precluded them from becoming lawyers. But the costs had become so escalated of protests and all of that, that by the time Babangida and then Abacha were leaving, it was almost impossible for younger people to contemplate it. Prohibitive costs had become the order of the day. But the other thing was, side by side with prohibitive costs, the government was also dangling carrots to make sure that those who collaborated showed up big time as being, so they made collaboration, complicity and collaboration in the crimes of military rule very profitable. Okay, so when you add up all of that stuff, possible, it made the costs so high that very few people, except those with a death wish in the school system, or those who had no parents and no family, were willing to contemplate it. And so from a country in which you had a conscious, and by the way, they had also purged the universities of the kinds of lecturers and intellectual influences that enabled you to create a conscious student body. So, from the Babangida regime, you started ending up with students
Can you hear me, sir?
I hear you.
Hello? Oh, thank you, because
Sir?
I didn't hear anything, Mr. The IBB book. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Prof, what I'm interested to know is one link and the other. I know it was IBB that overthrown Buhari, and IBB was Mr. I can't remember. After then, I know they had issues up until when Abacha became president. So why is it that Abacha later comes to work with Buhari as PTF chairman? I think if I can remember well, PTF chairman or something like that during Abacha. After all, I don't think Buhari has anybody that is having serious issues with him since that time when they overthrown him up to now than IBB. So, and IBB is very close to Abacha. Why is it that Abacha comes to work with Buhari? And then after Abacha died, why is it that Abdul Salami, who is very close to IBB, a childhood friend to him, took over, and the letter comes to give what do you call it, Obasanjo the candidacy under the PDP. That's my second question. And my third question is that IBB wanted to become a president again in 2003, if I can remember. I know I was 10 or 12 years then, but I used to follow history in one way or the other. So I come to understand that IBB wanted to become a president, and they had issues with what do you call it, Obasanjo then. And I know that in one way or the other, IBB has a hand in bringing Obasanjo because IBB is very close to Abdulsalami Abubakar. So this link that comes from Abacha to Buhari to IBB and to Obasanjo to Abdulsalami, I just want you to explain one or two things. What do you understand by the politics of these military people? This one is not in good term with this one, and this one is on good term with this one in one way or the other, and this one might become a friend to this one and all those things. Thank you.
No, no, thanks. For this, we'll probably need a totally different spaces because it's a pretty complex story, and you may, again, you've heard of several books here. Um, there's General Chris Ali's book, The Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which is you've got a whole slew of military biographies and autobiographies which will be relevant to this. It will probably be the equivalent of a book club on military law and military rule in Nigeria. Now, all of it doesn't, of course, mean that any of that will provide you necessarily with an answer. It just means that it may be possible through that to see some of the linkages. And I don't think I can at all do justice to your question, either now or in the time that we've got, unfortunately, as much as I would like to do so. It's a subject on which I've spent quite some time. It doesn't at all answer anything, to be perfectly honest with you, because there's a great deal that these generals have shared with one another, which none of us would ever know. And as Buhari said, he's going to carry everything into the grave. Babangida has given you a revisionist account, but in the middle, if you triangulate a lot of these sources, you begin to discover quite a few things.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Gaba did say something which I wanted to correct. Babangida wasn't contesting 2003. It was 2007 that he wanted to contest.
7, yes.
Yeah, 2007. So it's 2007. And Mo mentioned a lot of books that he wanted people to read. Mo, please, if you can kindly put those books on the Jumbo, if you can.
Jumbo.
Please, it's very important people read, because when you read these things, then you might be able to get the answers that you're looking for. I'm not sure if you mentioned the book by Professor Hosu. Did you mention the book, Laying the Foundation for Democracy, by account of June 12th? Did you mention?
No, I didn't.
That's a very important book. I think it's one book that everybody should try and get, because I think it's a book that yourself would like to read. It's very important if you find that book and read it. And Prof, one other question before we round up. Why do you think in this whole thing that Babangida did, he didn't recognize Professor Humphrey Mosu?
That is for him to deal with. But if he was involved, if he was on a revisionist trope, why would he recognize Professor Humphrey Mosu? Which I believe it's evident that Babangida was on a revisionist jamboree. There is no reason to credit Humphrey Mosu at all. The problem is that
I agree with you, because if there is anybody for them to recognize, I'm not saying after, but after Abacha, you explaining what transpired within the generals, that Tofa wasn't going to, they wanted Tofa to win. Yeah, you can see that happening, because they didn't believe, in my own opinion, they didn't believe that the option brought out would favor Abiola, because they felt that they can rig the election in the north. That was the whole idea, right? And it didn't work out that way. And when they saw that this thing is going the other way around, they didn't allow him to announce the last results. And he was begging, pleading with them that they should allow him to announce. I think, Prof, correct me, sir, I think it was Taraba State. That was the result he wanted to announce.
yes, yep,
It's Taraba State, yeah. Yes, it was Taraba State, because he was pleading with him announced Taraba State, and lots after the election. A lot of people accuse him that he was the one that annulled the election. It was his plan and everything. And if you remember the interview that he had, he talked about every time, coming to June 12 in his house in Enugu State, police will be running around. So if we want to set this thing right, we must recognize him. It's very, very important. That Prof, he's late now, but at the same time, Babangida wrote that book. For me, there's absolutely nothing there for me to read. There is nothing. He didn't say anything, that's new to me. He was just playing the book, his normal Maradona kind of politics. So that's where I will leave it for now. I can see Umar raising his hand. Olatunde and Dr. Oda, please, we're going to round up very soon, so we can allow Prof. It was an impromptu space, so we can allow him and invite him next time. So if you have a question, very brief. Olatunde, please go ahead, sir.
Hi. Once again, thank you, Prof, for making time. It's not just a question, more like an observation. With all of this revisionism that IBB is trying, it would have not worked if we have a system where the ALC, the Supreme Military Council, all the records, all the meetings, everything that happens were documented in real life time. Like what we have in Hansard. The same thing, we remember what happened with Watergate and the tapes. And it was the tapes of the white, you've got to go. Now, if we have a system where we have, things that are transcribed and kept for this should be, properties of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Accurate records, people's voices, notes and everything. Then when people come out and make these, fairy tales like IBB did, we could compare it, we could go back and say, okay, somebody makes a Freedom of Information Act ask or request and say, we want these things played. And then we could hear from, back then, how it happened, and it will stop these things from happening. That's how we get a better Nigeria. Just an observation. Thank you very much.
All right, thank
By
you
the
very
way,
much. Quickly, Doctor. Okay, go ahead, sir,
by the way,
please.
but the military is a very conservative institution, and they kept meticulous records. You'll be amazed what you can find. The problem is that they've not allowed access to the records. But do records exist? Of course, the records exist. Were there minutes? There were minutes of all the meetings of the Supreme Military Council, Armed Forces Ruling Council, National Defense and Security Council, and a lot of them. Every one of those had records and minutes down to the T. And if only they would allow archival access, you'll be amazed at what people will find. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Prof. Dr. Udo, quickly, please, your question or your contribution.
Okay, it's just a question. I want to ask Prof his opinion on this position because I think a lot of people have that same opinion that had Tofa won or he was the one leading, IBB would not have annulled that election. I have my own opinion. I might be wrong. And my own singular opinion is the fact that IBB used to call Abacha the Khalifa, which means my successor in Arabic. That's the meaning of the word. And for me, I think the end justifies the means because that was how the whole thing ended. So I want to ask your opinion. Do you think, Prof, that Tofa, if he had won, that he would have been the president? Or all these things was
No.
just not doing his thing, irrespective of who won?
But I just
Thank you.
explained to you. I just told you. I said it here. Tony Aneni tells the story in great detail in his book, in his autobiography, My Life in Nigerian Politics. He says the end game was always going to be an annulment. With Tofa, they were on stronger footing. Tofa registered as a woman in the NRC. His party card belonged to a woman. So they had that in their back pocket in hope, based on their intelligence, their expectation that when he won, they would say an impostor won the election. They will cancel it with justification. But then Abiola, who did not have that disability, didn't just win. He won by a moonslide. 58% in Nigeria by that time was actually a moonslide, not just a landslide. Shehu Shagari took a landslide with 47% of the vote in 1983, right? So that was the point, that the margin of victory was not at all close. And so that upended the entire strategy, and they then started working from answer to question. In Tofa's case, they had casus belli for nullification. In Abiola's case, they did not, and then they started being sloppy.
All right, thank you. Omar, you have the mic, please, quickly, sir.
Mindset. The last shall be the first, and the first shall be the last. You always bring me last. What I'm trying to say is, in the book that you referenced, Babangida said two things. When you raise the issue of why didn't he recognize Humphrey Nwosu, he said two things. One, that at the end, he takes full responsibility because the buck stops on his table. Two, he is happy that Nigerians have acknowledged him as the one who has conducted the freest and the fairest election in the history of Nigeria. So he's taking the credit.
Without a result.
So he's taking the credit. So how can he recognize the person who conducted it when he wants to take the credit? This is just the point I wanted to raise when you were making that point. Thank you.
Prof, you want to respond to Umar?
Not at all. I don't disagree at all.
I mean, so Prof is on your side. Yeah, Omar, I do get your point. The reason I'm saying that, I know he's trying to play politics with it. Obviously, he's not called Maradona because he's the best player. He called Maradona because he knows how to dribble Nigerians. You know, from 1985, he was dribbling and dribbling and dribbling until today. But Babangida is still dribbling Nigerians. But thank you very much, Umar. A lot of people have asked about the books. Prof, before, just bear with me for a minute or two. Comrade, please. A lot of people on my DM asking about the books that you mentioned. Do you mind repeating the books and tell if you can explain to them where they can get the books as well?
Okay.
Which books?
He mentioned a lot of books. When I spoke about people.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I think let me mention a few here. We are All Biafrans by Chidi Onuma. Then My Command by Obasanjo. Because I Am Involved by Odumego Ojukwu. Why We Struck by Adewale Ademoyega. Revolution in Nigeria by Major General Joe Garba. Then The Last 100 Days of Abacha by Olusegun Adeni. Profile in Courage by Paul C. Tarfa. And then The IBB Option by Joe Ibokwe. I think these are just few books that can guide you so that you can have an understanding of what actually is happening beyond the facade. If you read these books, it can help you have your own thinking and grab whatever you can. Like what I hated most about the whole IBB book is how a certain part of Igbos were applauding IBB for saying that the 1966 is not an Igbo coup. You don't need IBB to tell you if it's an Igbo coup or not. In my own opinion, you don't need IBB to come and tell you if it's an Igbo coup or not. And it holds no water. What matters is how Nigerians feel. And I think it's high time we should move beyond. It's 50, 60 years. It's high time we should move beyond this petty ethnic and religious coloration to democracy and to development. Once we cannot move beyond that, it is going to be a very, very big problem, in the words of late Chubo Okadibo. Thank you very much.
Okay. Before I pass the mic to Prof, you see, Babangida in one breath in that book was saying that it's not an Igbo coup. But if you look, I think it was the second paragraph, the third paragraph, he now talked about the whole war taking an ethnic correlation and everything. So he's lying to himself, right? You know, for me, he's just nonsense. I don't need Babangida to tell me that the coup was not an Igbo coup. I don't need Babangida. So, you know, it was not an Igbo coup from day one. For those who want to make it an Igbo coup, good luck to them. They can continue to fly their kite, but it was not an Igbo coup. So I don't need Babangida, who is lying to himself. In one breath, he's saying it's not an Igbo coup. In the second paragraph, he's saying it has an ethnic coloration. So he doesn't want to come out fully, right, to say that. So it was not an Igbo coup. Those who want to argue can go back and read the books and then decide for themselves. So on that note, I'm sorry, Comrade, these books, they can be found. Where can we get these books? I wanted to tell the people where they can get these books.
Actually, on my side, I have the hard copies of this book, but I think they can get the soft copies. I think on probably net on net, and then you can find the hard copies in libraries. Because to be honest, in university libraries, you can find this book in the history section of the university libraries too, where you can read and return. I have all the hard copies. Then you can get the soft copies, I think, online too. Thank you.
All right. So what you? Sorry. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
I mean, for those in Abuja, I think I would suggest Mosuro. Mosuro Bookshop. You've got one. There are two that I know. One is on the junction of Detokumba Demola after Chelsea Hotel there, and another one is on Muhammadu Buhari in Garki. They probably stock they probably are and of course most all used to be in Ibadan. They still have a branch in Ibadan, the Lagos. Roving Heights, of course, in Abuja may also have some of them, but Mosuro is the most likely. And if they don't, they may be able to order copies for you. And to those titles, I would add General Chris Ali's autobiography, The Federal Republic of Nigerian Army. It's a very important part of that collection. I've also put down here you agree with the person. So that means that if I read Mein Kampf, I therefore agree with Hitler. But light is very important for anyone who is trying to get a rounded picture of the segment of Nigerian history that we're talking about. The other title in that that people may want to take a look at is Omo Moruyi's June 12 story. It's pretty important. Then, of course, Debo Basharu's memoirs, I think, are also useful. But, as I said, for anyone looking to access those books, I would recommend very highly Mosuro Bookshop.
Oh, please.
All right, thank you very much. So, Mo, you're going to add these ones that Prof mentioned. So you have to tweet about these books. Mo, I'm giving you an assignment now, so can Mo do it and tag me on it, and I will try and retweet it as well. The three that Prof mentioned, add those to the ones that you mentioned as well, because it's hard time we start reading, right? If we don't read, we won't understand what is going on. Gaba, please, you wanted to say something?
Yes,
we are rounding up
with
very
regard
soon.
to my question, Prof mentioned a book that I should go and look for it and read. And I can't remember exactly what the name of the book. Prof, if you can remember my question, you mentioned one book, and I'm interested in it. Can you remember?
It's not Tony Ane's book that I've just mentioned, is it? Hello?
Yeah, is it Tony Anini's one, sir? Because he asked about why Abacha worked with Buhari and then Babangida and everything. So I think it was Tony Anini's book that you mentioned.
No, it's Tony Anini's book, and it is General Chris Ali's book. Yeah.
Earlier on when Prof was speaking. Okay, that's fine. Prof, thank you very much for coming to this space in a short notice. It's been amazing. I've learned a lot, and I think if you're giving me an assignment, I'm going to find General Latunde's book to read, and then to continue to educate myself in Nigerian politics. It's been amazing spaces as always. But before we round up, Prof, I'll give you the mic for your final thoughts, sir.
No, there's nothing more to say. We live in very interesting times, and I just hope that people don't give up hope, because I think that is also part of the strategy of this law, to drive us all into a cul-de-sac in which we give up hope on ourselves. Never mind the country to deal with.